this is a superhero character, so I want to really give evidence of the kind of strength that the character is about. What I'm doing is just roughing out the figure, getting some idea of the proportions and a feeling of movement and force in the figure. And great care has to be taken because extreme exaggeration may very well make the figure look not dynamic, but a little bit ridiculous. So you got to make sure that the perspective, foreshortening, proportions, and the look of the figure is right. No matter how many reasons why you think you did it correct, if it looks wrong, it's wrong. I'm building the drawing, of course, as I go along, trying now to make sure that the construction, the anatomy is correct, that the musculature that I'm going to endow this guy with will be believable. These arcs that I'm putting on the figures gives me a sense of perspective for the figure, and it gives me a guide so that the foreshortening on the figures, the foreshortening on the arms, the foreshortening on the torso actually works. I'm building on top of my very, very light sketches. You'll notice also that by just slightly darkening the lines, the lighter lines almost seem to disappear of their own accord. The foreshortening and extreme perspective lends a certain amount of dynamism to the figure itself. If the arm is foreshortened, the hand coming out to you, the hand will seem much, much larger than it would ordinarily simply because it's closer to you. No matter what you do, if the figure doesn't look right, it's wrong. It's that simple.
We here at Joe Kubert's World of Cartooning want to thank you for taking part in this course. Listen carefully to Joe's tips and instructions and apply these ideas to your own work. And now, here's Joe.
Hi. Welcome to my studio. This is where I work. This is the place I like being the most. I hope you enjoy drawing as much as I do. Yeah, I know sometimes it's tough. Sometimes the drawing doesn't come out precisely the way you'd like. But if you want to improve your drawing, I'm here to help you. You, however, have to make the effort. I'll be with you every step of the way, and we'll both watch your drawings improve as we go along. So, get your video and your workbook, set them up, and let's get started. Cartooning goes back hundreds of years. Even the great masters like Michelangelo did cartoons. That is, a series of illustrations that tell a story. The Egyptians used hieroglyphics to tell of their history. American Indians used petroglyphs, drawings on stone. Storytelling in picture form goes further back than that, to the time of the caveman. They decorated cave walls with ritual hunting scenes, animal stampedes. Those were our earliest cartoonists. To begin with, you'll need to set yourself up a workplace so that it's both comfortable and convenient. Set up your drawing surface, whether it's a table or a lapboard, so that it's at a 90-degree angle from your eyes. If it is not at this 90-degree angle, your drawings will seem distorted. If you don't have a drawing table or even a lapboard to start working with, use the carton that your lessons came with. Just set it up on your lap and draw on that. Remember now, keep your materials neat and near at hand. Keep your sketch paper close by so that should you need it, you've got it. Also, I keep all my references handy in files like this. Set up your VCR where it can be easily seen
and where you can operate it, because you're going to need it to constantly refer back and forth between the workbook and the video. That's the way you're going to get the most out of this course. You'll find that there is a blank sheet of drawing paper inserted between each lesson page in your course book. In addition, you'll need plenty of plain, letter-sized bond and tracing paper for practice. Remember to do all your rough sketching on practice paper before you put your finished drawing on the 2-ply boards provided for your homework. As you finish each of the lessons in this course, you'll be sending them in to us, one at a time, for review, instructive criticism, and a lot of encouragement. Send in only the special homework page, because no other sketches or drawings will be reviewed. The homework page goes into the pre-addressed mailer, and it will be returned to you with our comments the same way. We will only review your work in sequence. That is, Lesson 1 must be completed and returned before we'll deal with Lesson 2. It's essential for you to review our comments and instructions on one lesson before you tackle the next. The more you learn about things that exist all around you, the more you can bring to your drawings, and the more effective your drawings will become. Textures are extremely important. They lend validity and authenticity to your illustrations. If you draw a monster or a dinosaur, the way you render the hide is important. The cartoonist should not rely on drawings for reference. The best artwork is still an interpretation. You as a cartoonist should go to the original source, the real thing. There are good ways and there are bad ways to use reference material. The artist uses the reference. The reference does not use the artist. By that I mean, don't limit yourself to 1 or 2 pictures and start to copy them slavishly. Study many of the references so that you get accustomed to the subject, so that you come to get a proper sense of the subject. Analyze and understand the subject well so that you can draw it from any angle. Sometimes a young artist is told not to copy. It's not good to copy. That's wrong. The way we all learn to draw is by copying and by tracing. Get your eye accustomed to what looks right. And when you practice, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to use your eraser. That's what the eraser is for, to correct your mistakes. Also, if you want to make a change, try it out on tracing paper first. And that way you can keep a record of your corrections without destroying the original drawing. Nobody gets better at drawing except by constant practice and constant drawing. That's how we all do it, and that's how we keep on learning.
Joe collects and files hundreds of pieces of reference on all subjects, and he refers to them frequently as he draws.
more you draw, the more you will improve. The more you improve, the more you will enjoy the drawing, and the more you'll want to draw. In that way it becomes, hopefully, a never-ending circle. And now here's your opportunity, if you follow along with me, to create your own superhero character. Okay, we start with the normally proportioned human figure. That's the basis for our superhero figure.
Joe begins by establishing the space on the paper that his drawing will occupy, from the top of the head to the feet. Then he divides it in half. The halfway mark comes right about at the hips. The top half of the figure is divided into 4 equal sections. The height of the head is 1/4. The next quarter comes to the chest, midway in the top half of the figure. The next is where the navel is. That makes 4 head sizes from crown to hips. The wrist is even with the hips. The elbow is half the distance between the wrist and the shoulder. This makes the upper and lower arms the same length. Halfway between the hips and the ankle comes the knee. Of course, proportions will vary with different characters and physiques, but you should learn these basic proportions and refer to them when drawing normal figures.
Exaggeration of these normal proportions make him look like a superhero. While a superhero is created by exaggerating a normal human figure, if you overdo those exaggerations, the hero is going to look wrong, freakish, even comical. When a character is too disproportionate, it will not be seen as a superhero. It will not be correct. Over-exaggeration and distortion can be corrected by referring to the normal human figure again. This means that we must learn the basics that apply to normal figures, and just drawing a bunch of exaggerated muscles and tying them together won't hack it.
Like the full figure, the head is first divided in half. That marks the top of the eyes. Then halfway between the eyes and the chin comes the bottom of the nose. And halfway again from the nose to the chin is the lip. The space between the eyes is the same as the width of just one eye. The corners of the mouth line up with the eye's pupils. The ear goes from about the eyebrow to the bottom of the nose.
The superhero's head has to reflect the entire character, but correct proportions come first. We can only learn proportions by constant practice. Study the heads in the old drawings and paintings done hundreds of years ago. Even then, the masters drew superheroes. See? Superheroes come in all shapes and sizes. That's the great thing about being able to draw. You can record anything that's on your mind in a picture form. All you have to do is think of what it is that you want to draw, think of the kind of superhero you want to do, and what he should look like, and why he should look the way he does. What's his background? What's your superhero's background? Where does he come from? You must learn to think before you draw. The drawing does not come from your pencil. The drawing comes from your mind. Think about what it is that makes one superhero different from the other. And they should be distinctive differences. It's these differences that really make the difference between one superhero and another. Here's the way to practice. To invent an original superhero character, first imagine in your mind, is he going to be really big? Or is she an Amazon? Is he a little guy? Or is he stocky, or lean, or broad, or squat? You've got to decide what superpowers you want to give your character. Is he generated by electricity? Is he empowered by water? Or maybe rubber or plastic? Or is it metal? He's your character. He's your imagination at work. He can do anything you want him to do. You have to understand that heroes aren't necessarily superheroes. A detective can be the hero of your story, or a wild man in the jungle. A scuba diver, a cop, or a cowboy could be a hero. It depends on how you think of them and how you depict them, how you costume them, and how you present them. These guys are heroes, not superheroes. They could be you or me with muscles, and they could exist today or in the past, but their costumes have to be right. The use of references now becomes extremely important. Accurate details are critical. If those details are wrong, it makes the entire drawing look foolish. A cowboy wears special clothing, boots, chaps, guns, a costume that identifies him, and those details must be correct. Not just what you think is right, not nearly right, but must be absolutely right in order to make that character and the story believable.
Notice how Joe has first started with the basic foundation of a hat. Now he can develop and detail it into any shape he wants.
Look at it this way. If you as a comic book reader don't believe a character is real, you're not going to be interested in anything he may say or do, right? But if he looks real, you're going to care what happens to him.
Because Joe has always used plenty of historical reference for his many successful combat characters, he's come to memorize a lot of the details. In time, you'll be able to do this too. Now, don't be intimidated by Joe's ability to draw quickly and so well. It's taken years of practice, and no one expects you to do it overnight. But keep working at it. You won't realize the progress you've made until you look back at some of the earlier attempts you've saved.
A superhero can be created from almost anything, human or otherwise. It's done in animation all the time. The Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, an animated train that seems to be alive, the dancing broom in The Sorcerer's Apprentice. All of these are examples of taking inanimate objects and making them live. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, that drawing funny is easy because the drawing looks simpler. And that's wrong. It's harder to know what to leave out than it is to know what to put in. And it's only by careful observation that you can eventually develop the judgment necessary for that kind of simplification. Check out the examples in your coursework book and see what you can do on your own. Action is the basis of the superhero. The hero's got to move. First, though, get the feeling of the movement, like this. Follow me? As an artist, it's important that you note very carefully what goes on around you, what happens in your daily life. Study, observe, notice how a kid moves, or how he runs, or how an old man walks, or how he sits down. Try to get all these elements into your drawing. People react in all different kinds of ways when they're scared. Some cower or retreat. Others maybe just put their hands up to protect themselves. The kind of emotion that you get into the character that you're drawing really comes from yourself. You're the actor. You're setting that character up. And you've got to really dig inside yourself to make sure that the character that you're drawing acts the way you want him to act. You can tell the difference between superheroes because of the differences in their costumes. Costumes should give an idea of the powers that each superhero possesses. And when you design a superhero's costume, remember, you can use different parts of those things that might have existed in the past, like a knight's helmet, or his gloves, or his boots, or armaments, for the costumes of your superhero today.
Whenever Joe goes to a museum, he takes a sketchbook with him. Take yours wherever you go.
You have to know that the character doesn't change physically with a change of clothing. If a superhero is heavily muscled, he doesn't discard his muscles when he puts on a suit. Study clothing designers in magazines and in newspapers, and their illustrations will give you the clue as to the proper style and fit of clothing. The more imaginative and fantastic the character is in an illustration, the more important it is to have realistic backgrounds. Watch this. If my superhero is flying over a city that's drawn looking like a bunch of cardboard boxes, even I wouldn't believe he's real. But if the city looks convincing, then maybe my superhero is real too. To accomplish this, you must have good references. Realistic photographic references. A building must look like a building, with real bricks and real windows. A tree has to look like a real tree, like this. Any drawing sequence can be heightened by adding weather elements, or the time of day or night. For instance, there are lots of different ways of drawing snow. It is necessary to have a firm idea in mind when you plan out the area in which your action is taking place. Do some sketching of it first. Figure out where you're locating the doors and the windows. Work it like a stage set. Where's the furniture going to stand so that the background will be right from all different angles? Sure, it takes time to draw effective backgrounds, but you can find real pleasure in it. Train yourself not to rush to completion. You must learn to enjoy the process, and then you'll really see some improvement occurring to your work. Writing and drawing for comics are two separate and distinct jobs. Don't try to do them at the same time. You start first with the story. Once you have the story down, then you start to illustrate it by breaking the story down into its segments. The layout and composition of a comic book page has to be designed to attract a reader. If the book looks boring, your audience will not want to read the material. If the page looks too busy and too difficult to follow, the reader will be repelled by that page. Pre-sketches and thumbnail sketches are an absolute must so that you make your mistakes before you actually put your material on the good paper. Don't start your drawing by doing details. Rough out your drawing first. Only after you have your roughs done should you incorporate the details.
Here's a quick introduction to inking. The use of pen, brush, and ink. Lightly shake the bottle and stir the ink before use. Ink has a tendency to separate when left standing any length of time. Practice your inking by placing tracing paper over some of the drawings in your course book. Ink the drawings with pen and brush. But remember, if this is your first attempt at inking, don't be discouraged. Practice is the key to success. Your ability to do penciling will increase as a result of your experience with inking.
Now notice what I'm doing. I'm not drawing precisely what I have pencil. I'm refining the drawing as I go along. I'm putting a heavier outline here with my brush, but if I want a more regulated line, I will do that with the pen. And make sure that when you're inking that you're just inking on the surface. Don't dig in, or else you're going to find that you're going right through the paper. You'll snag it every time. Just relax. Allow the tip of the pen just to hit the surface of the paper. Now, if I want some more detail, I'll go back to my croquis, because the croquis gives me a real fine, steady line. Placement of lettering is also part of the penciler's job and responsibility. Use of the Ames guide and lettering with the B6 and B5 nibs are helpful experiences for the penciler as well. After you've practiced inking on the tracing paper, check for your mistakes. Then start inking on your pencils. When your inking is dry, erase the pencils. And if you've made any mistakes on those drawings, use your white paint. Your white paint works with inking just as your eraser works with pencils. Well, that's about it for now. I hope you've enjoyed working with me as much as I have with you. And I'm sure it's helped you improve your work, perhaps even more than you realize. Keep this video and course book a part of your valuable tools. Continue going over and over the material, and you'll be surprised how much more you'll pick up by repeating the instructions and advice I've already given you, and by practicing. It really depends on your motivation as well as your own personal effort, so don't stop now. I hope you'll stay in touch with me and keep working hard so that someday you'll realize your ambition to become one of us, a cartoonist.
This course is devoted to just one aspect of comic book work. If you'd like to expand your knowledge in other areas of comic book creation, check the back of your workbook for a list of other courses in the series. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to working with you again.